Commander Daniel Hayes had never liked diplomatic missions. They were too slow, too full of speeches, and too dependent on keeping a smile while listening to words that meant nothing. He was a man of action, an explorer who had joined the fleet to chart new worlds, not sit at long tables while everyone argued about titles and treaties. But orders were orders, and so here he was on the far edge of the galaxy, trapped inside a glittering alien station that was about to fall apart. The Falari Dominion had built the station centuries ago. It was a massive structure of crystal and metal, floating like a jewel against the blackness of space. Humans had only recently met the Falari, tall beings with silver eyes, sharp ears, and long, elegant tails that shimmered in the light. They were proud, formal, and not easily impressed. For weeks, Daniel's crew had been trying to negotiate trade agreements with them, but nothing moved forward. It was a waste of time, in his opinion, and now, as if to prove him right, the station was collapsing. The alarm started with a low hum. Then the floor shook. Shards of crystal fell from the ceiling. The station's energy core was failing, and everyone inside rushed for the exits. Human diplomats scrambled to escape. Falari guards shouted orders in their own language. The once calm halls turned into chaos. Daniel pushed through the crowd, helping his crew reach the docking bay. He should have been the first to board the ship. He was their commander, but that wasn't his style. He made sure everyone else was safe before he turned back for one last look. That was when he saw her. She stood apart from the others, framed by a collapsing arch of crystal. Tall, graceful, wearing robes of deep blue trimmed with silver, she was unmistakable. He recognized her from the endless briefings. Empress Liara, ruler of the Falari Dominion. She was the most important person in this sector of space, and right now she was about to die. A chunk of the ceiling fell behind her, cutting off her path. The platform beneath her feet began to crack. She looked around, searching for her guards, but they were too far away, fighting through the panicked crowd. For the first time, Daniel saw fear on her face. He didn't think, he just moved. Daniel ran across the shaking floor, dodging falling shards. The crack widened under her feet. The platform tilted. She slipped, her silver eyes wide with shock. At the last moment, Daniel reached her. His hand shot out, but instead of her arm or shoulder, he grabbed the only thing within reach. Her long, silver-furred tail. The Empress gasped. The sound was sharp, almost like a cry, and her entire body froze. Her hands gripped the edge of the platform, her tail locked in Daniel's hand. He pulled with all his strength, bracing his boots against the trembling floor. With one final heave, he dragged her back to safety, both of them crashing onto solid ground as the platform broke away and fell into the abyss below. Dust and shards rained around them. Daniel coughed, shielding his face, but the Empress clung to him. She didn't move. Her eyes were wide, her breathing quick, her tail trembling slightly in his grip. He let go at once, worried he had hurt her. I'm sorry, he said, panting. It was the only thing I could reach. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then slowly, she leaned closer. Her silver eyes softened, and her hands, delicate yet strong, tightened around his arm as if she would not let him go. Her guards finally reached them, shouting in Falari language. They tried to pull her away, but she refused. Instead, she rose gracefully to her feet, still holding on to Daniel's arm. With her chin high, she gave a sharp order to her guards. They fell back, confused but obedient. Daniel blinked. What just happened? The escape back to the Resolute was a blur. The docking bay shook as parts of the station collapsed behind them. Human crew shouted in panic, guiding the Empress and her guards onto the ship. Daniel stayed close, still half expecting her to let go of him at any moment. But she didn't. Her hand remained wrapped around his arm, her tail occasionally brushing against his side as if by accident, or perhaps not. When the airlock finally sealed shut and the ship pulled away from the dying station, the crew let out cheers of relief. But the cheers quieted when they noticed the Empress. She was still there, regal and calm despite the chaos, her silver gaze scanning the humans around her, and she was still holding on to Commander Daniel Hayes. The crew exchanged looks. Whispers started. Is she clinging to him? Someone muttered. Why is she holding him like that? Another whispered back. Daniel tried to pull away politely. Your Majesty, you're safe now. You should, but she only tightened her grip. Her voice, calm and soft, carried authority even through the translator device. This human has saved me, she said. I will remain with him. The room went silent. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it again. This wasn't covered in any training manual. Later, in the command room, the situation grew stranger. Captain Rena Ortiz, Daniel's superior, raised an eyebrow as she looked at him. So let me get this straight. You grabbed her tail, she gasped, and now she won't leave your side? Daniel rubbed his face. That's exactly what happened. And for the record, I didn't mean to. She was falling and… The Empress interrupted, her voice clear. You touched my tail, Daniel winced. Yes, sorry about that. Her silver eyes fixed on him. Do you not understand the meaning of what you have done? He blinked. Meaning? I was just trying to save you. Her guards exchanged uneasy glances. One of them muttered something quickly in their language, and another looked shocked. The Empress ignored them, still staring at Daniel. To grasp the tail of a Falari is not a small act, she said slowly. It is sacred. Daniel felt his stomach sink. Sacred, right, of course. Figures I'd break some ancient law. But instead of anger, the Empress's expression softened. It is the sign of a life bond, a bond of trust, of destiny. Once chosen, it cannot be undone. Daniel nearly choked. Wait, hold on. I didn't choose anything. I just didn't want you to fall into a bottomless pit. The Empress tilted her head, her long tail curling slightly behind her. Yet you did. And so the bond is made. Captain Ortiz tried not to laugh. Well, Hayes, congratulations. Looks like you're the Empress's chosen protector now. The human crew chuckled quietly, but the Falari guards looked horrified. Their Empress had been bonded to a human. It was unthinkable, and yet she stood calmly, her hand resting lightly on Daniel's shoulder as if to silence all doubts. Daniel buried his face in his hands. I just wanted a quiet mission. Why does this stuff always happen to me? The next few hours were chaos. Messages poured in from Falari command ships demanding an explanation. Human diplomats scrambled to understand what had just happened. Meanwhile, the Empress refused to move anywhere without Daniel. She followed him to the medical bay, the briefing room, even the mess hall. Whenever someone tried to separate them, her eyes flashed with authority, and she declared, "He stays with me." The crew found it hilarious. Everywhere Daniel went, whispers followed him. Careful, Commander, your shadow's showing. Better not sit down without asking her permission first. Do we call you Your Majesty now too? Daniel ignored them, but inside he felt like his life had just been turned upside down. Saving someone was one thing. Accidentally becoming bound to the ruler of an alien empire, that was a whole different level of trouble. The Empress, however, seemed perfectly at peace. In fact, when Daniel finally asked her why she kept clinging to him, she gave him a simple answer. You caught me when I was falling. That moment will never leave me. From now on, I stand with you, Daniel sighed. He didn't know what that really meant or how much trouble it would cause. But he had a feeling this was only the beginning. The Resolute glided silently through space, leaving behind the wreckage of the Falari station. Most of the human crew finally began to relax, but one man could not. Commander Daniel Hayes walked through the corridors with heavy steps, fully aware of the silver eyes always watching him and the soft pressure of a hand resting on his arm. The Empress Liara had not left his side since he grabbed her tail. It was as if she had attached herself to him with invisible chains. Every crew member they passed stopped to stare. Some whispered. Others laughed. A few saluted the Empress with awkward respect. Daniel tried to keep his head down, but there was no hiding the truth. The ruler of the Falari Dominion was now following him around like a shadow. The Empress in the mess hall. Daniel had hoped the mess hall would give him a little peace, but he was wrong. The moment he stepped inside, conversation stopped. Dozens of human crew members turned to watch as the Empress entered behind him. She looked out of place among the simple metal tables and trays of food, her flowing robes shining under the artificial lights. Daniel muttered under his breath, "Great. Now lunchtime is a royal performance." The cook behind the counter froze as the Empress approached. He whispered, "Commander, is she really?" "Yes," Daniel sighed. "Just give her something light. Maybe soup? Do not under any circumstances serve her chili." The cook hurriedly prepared a tray. The Empress accepted it with regal calm, then sat down, next to Daniel, of course. She moved with grace, as though even the simplest action was part of some ceremony. When Daniel picked up his fork, she did the same. When he sipped his water, she mirrored the motion. The crew around them tried to pretend they weren't staring, but their eyes kept darting over. Finally, Ensign Patel leaned forward from another table. "So, Commander, what's it like having the galaxy's most powerful ruler as your personal bodyguard?" Daniel gave him a look. "Funny, real funny." The Empress tilted her head. "He is not my guard. He is my bond." The room fell silent. A few crew members exchanged glances. Patel blinked. "Your bond?" Liara's voice was soft, but it carried authority. "Among the Falari, To grasp the tail is to accept the life bond. It is a connection of loyalty and fate. It cannot be undone. Daniel dropped his fork with a loud clatter. Hold on, accept? I didn't accept anything. I was just trying to stop you from falling. Liara's silver eyes met his, steady and calm. Intent does not matter. Action does. You chose to hold me, and so the bond was sealed. The crew erupted in whispers. Some tried not to laugh. Others looked amazed. Patel grinned. Commander, you're bonded to an alien Empress. That's historic, Daniel groaned. It's a disaster, that's what it is. Falari guards unhappy. The Empress's personal guards were less amused. Tall and stern, they marched up to Daniel after the meal, their silver armor gleaming. One of them, a warrior named Kale, stepped forward. His tail lashed behind him in frustration. This is unacceptable, Kyle said through the translator. No human may share the sacred bond with our ruler. It is an insult to our traditions. Daniel threw up his hands. Finally, someone who agrees with me. Please tell her that. Maybe she'll listen to you. But Liara's gaze turned sharp. Enough, Kale, the bond was made. You will respect it. The guard stiffened, his jaw tight. My Empress, with respect, this human is unworthy, Daniel muttered. Tell me something I don't know. Liara's eyes flashed. He saved me when none of you could reach me. He risked his life without hesitation. That is worth more than titles or bloodlines. The guards fell silent, but their tails twitched with barely hidden anger. They obeyed her words, but their eyes glared at Daniel like he had stolen something sacred. The human captain's worries. Later that evening, Daniel was summoned to Captain Reyna Ortiz's office. Liara followed, of course, gliding in with calm steps as if she owned the room. Captain Ortiz raised an eyebrow, then gestured for them to sit. Commander, she said, folding her hands on the desk. Do you understand the position you've put us in? Daniel leaned forward. Captain, with all due respect, I didn't put us in anything. Gravity did. The floor cracked, she fell, I grabbed her tail, and now... He gestured helplessly at the Empress. This, Ortiz pinched the bridge of her nose. This bond, if it's real, is more than just personal. It's political. We're talking about the ruler of an empire. If she believes you are bound to her, then her entire government will believe it too. Daniel's stomach sank. So what does that mean for me? Ortiz gave him a thin smile. It means, Commander Hayes, that you might be the most important human in the galaxy right now. And that terrifies me. Before Daniel could answer, Liara spoke. You need not fear. The bond is sacred. It brings honor, not danger. Ortiz raised an eyebrow. Your Majesty, with respect, humans don't exactly have the best reputation out here. Some of your rivals might see this as weakness. Liara's gaze was firm. Then they will see wrong. The bond is strength, Daniel groaned. Why does everyone keep saying that? I don't feel strong. I feel like I accidentally married into an alien royal family. News spreads across the stars within days. Word of the bond spread beyond the ship. Somehow, despite attempts to keep it quiet, both human and Falari communication channels were buzzing with rumors. Messages poured in from nearby systems. The Empress bonded to a human. Impossible. Surely a mistake. Is this some kind of insult? Or is it an alliance? Some Falari leaders were furious. Others were curious. Rival factions saw an opportunity to challenge the Empress's rule. Human diplomats panicked, trying to turn the accident into a chance for negotiation. Daniel, meanwhile, couldn't even walk down the corridor without whispers following him. Some humans saluted him as if he had been promoted. Others teased him mercilessly. The Falari guards glared at him like he had stolen their goddess. And through it all, Liara stayed at his side, calm and unshaken. An assassination attempt. The first sign of real danger came 3 days later. Daniel was walking with Liara through a quiet maintenance corridor when the lights flickered. A shadow moved above them. Before Daniel could react, a cloaked figure leapt down, blade flashing. The assassin's strike was aimed not at Daniel but at Liara. Look out, Daniel shouted. Without thinking, he shoved her aside and raised his arm. The blade slashed across his sleeve, cutting the fabric but missing his skin. The assassin hissed, a strange reptilian sound, then lunged again. This time Daniel moved first. He grabbed a metal panel from the wall and slammed it into the attacker's chest. The assassin stumbled back, stunned. Moments later, Liara's guards arrived, tackling the intruder and dragging him away. Liara rushed to Daniel, her eyes wide with fear. You protected me. Again. Daniel shook his head, breathing hard. Instinct. That's all. But she touched his arm gently, her silver eyes shining. No, it is the bond. You act because you are my chosen. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but her words stuck in his mind. He didn't believe in bonds or destiny, yet when the blade had come down, he hadn't thought twice. He had moved to protect her. Why? He wasn't sure. The Empress declares it publicly. That evening, in front of the human crew and her own guards, Empress Liara made a declaration. Standing tall, her voice carried like music through the ship's hall. Today a hand reached for me when I was falling. That same hand stood between me and death. I, Liara of the Falari, declare before all that the life bond is real. This human, Daniel Hayes, is my chosen protector. From this day forward, none will separate us. Gasps filled the room. The human crew stood frozen. The Falari guards looked horrified. Daniel felt the ground shift under his feet. Wait, Your Majesty, maybe we should, he started. But Liara's tail brushed lightly against his arm, silencing him. Her silver eyes glowed with certainty, and for the first time Daniel realized this was no longer just an accident. He was part of something much larger, something that could change the fate of two civilizations. The corridors of the Resolute felt heavier after the assassination attempt. Security doubled. Patrols moved constantly. Every corner seemed darker than before, and every shadow felt like it hid another blade. For Commander Daniel Hayes, the pressure was worse than ever. It was not only because assassins were now trying to kill the Empress, but also because she refused to let him out of her sight. Wherever he went, she was there. In the command room, in the training deck, even when he tried to fix a coffee machine, she stood nearby with calm dignity. The crew had started calling her his shadow. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but deep inside he felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier. Suspicion. Among the Falari guards, the Empress's guards were restless. They had failed once, and that shame was carved into their proud faces. Commander Kale, the leader of her guard, watched Daniel with cold eyes. During a meeting in the war room, Kale finally spoke. "This bond is a mistake," he said in a sharp tone. "Every moment the Empress spends with this human, she is in greater danger. His presence is a weakness our enemies will exploit." Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhausted. "Trust me, Kale, if I knew how to undo this bond, I'd do it yesterday." Liara turned her silver eyes on Kale. Her voice was calm, but each word carried steel. "Do not question the bond again. Without him, I would have fallen. Without him, I would be dead. I trust him." Kale lowered his head, but his tail flicked in anger. The other guards exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel felt their hatred burning into his back like a fire. The message that night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked the dim corridor alone, finally convincing Liara to rest in the guest quarters. For a few minutes he enjoyed silence, but then a screen on the wall flickered to life. A hooded figure appeared on the display, their voice distorted. "Human, you have made a mistake." Daniel stiffened. "Who is this?" "You have taken something sacred. The Empress is ours. Release her bond or we will take her from you by force." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't take anything. I saved her. That's all." The figure leaned closer to the screen. "Then you will die for it, and she will die with you." The screen went dark. Daniel stood there for a long moment, his fists clenched. Whoever these enemies were, they were not just rivals in politics. They were determined killers, and they would not stop. The second attack, 2 days later, the Resolute arrived near a Falari colony world to resupply. The crew thought they would finally get a moment of peace. Instead, danger came again. As the ship entered orbit, alarms blared. A small fleet of unknown vessels uncloaked from the darkness of space. Sleek black ships with sharp wings and glowing red engines. "Enemy ships incoming," the officer on the bridge shouted. The Resolute trembled as laser fire slammed into its shields. Daniel rushed onto the bridge with Liara right behind him. "Report!" Captain Ortiz barked orders. Shields holding, but barely. They came out of nowhere. "We're outnumbered 3-1. On the main screen, the enemy ships spread like wolves surrounding prey. Their weapons glowed, ready to strike again. Liara's voice was calm, but her eyes narrowed. "These are not simple raiders. They are hired assassins. They came for me." Daniel stared at the display, his mind racing. Humans couldn't match the raw firepower of these ships, but maybe, just maybe, they could outthink them. "Captain," he said, "let me take a strike team. If we can disable their command ship, the rest might fall apart." Ortiz frowned. "That's suicide, Hayes." Daniel glanced at Liara, then back at the captain. "Maybe, but if we do nothing, we're all dead anyway." Liara stepped forward. "I will go with him." Daniel turned in shock. "What? No. You're the target. You can't come." Her silver eyes locked on his. The bond is not broken by fear. Where you go, I go. For a moment, Daniel wanted to argue, but one look at her determined face told him it was useless. She wasn't asking. She was declaring. Boarding the enemy ship, the strike team launched in a small shuttle, racing through the chaos of battle. Enemy fire streaked past them, but Daniel's quick piloting brought them through. The shuttle slammed against the hull of the enemy command ship, attaching with a loud thud. Everyone ready? Daniel asked, gripping his rifle. The Marines nodded. Liara stood at his side, unarmed but calm, her tail swaying like silver flame. The doors blew open. The team stormed inside. Blaster fire echoed in the corridors. Alien soldiers in black armor roared and attacked, but the humans fought with precision. Daniel moved quickly, firing, ducking, leading the charge. Liara stayed close, her presence strangely steadying him. At last, they reached the command chamber. Inside stood a tall figure in dark robes, the same voice Daniel had heard on the screen. You should have listened, human, the figure hissed. Now you both die. Daniel raised his weapon, but the enemy leader pressed a button. Energy surged through the walls. The chamber shook. The ship's core was overloading. He's going to blow the whole thing, a Marine shouted. Daniel's heart pounded. If the core exploded, it would destroy half the fleet, including the Resolute. The choice Daniel looked at Liara. Her silver eyes were calm, steady, trusting. She believed in him completely, even when he didn't believe in himself. He thought fast. Instead of shooting the enemy leader, he sprinted toward the console. His fingers flew across the controls. Human systems were different, but he understood enough about reactors to improvise. He rerouted energy, cut power to the overload, and forced the core into a controlled shutdown. Sparks flew. The ship trembled. But the core stabilized. The enemy leader roared with rage. He charged at Daniel with a blade, but Liara stepped between them. Her tail whipped forward, knocking the weapon aside. Daniel raised his rifle and fired, dropping the attacker to the floor. Silence filled the chamber. The danger was over. Liara turned to him, her silver eyes glowing softly. You saved not only me, but everyone. Daniel's chest heaved with exhaustion. He shook his head. I just did what I had to. But deep inside, he felt something new. A spark of pride. Maybe the bond wasn't just some accident. Maybe it meant something after all. After the battle, the enemy fleet scattered once their command ship was disabled. The Resolute survived, though scarred. Cheers filled the human ship as news of victory spread. But in the shadows of the galaxy, the real war was only beginning. Other factions heard the news. A human had bonded with the Empress, and together they had defeated assassins who were supposed to kill her. Some saw hope in this strange union. Others saw danger. Plans began to form in secret halls. Plots twisted like threads in a web. On the Resolute, Daniel stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Liara stood beside him, her tail brushing lightly against his arm. Why me? He asked quietly. Out of everyone in the galaxy, why me? Liara's voice was soft. Because you reached for me when I was falling. You did not hesitate. That is who you are. Daniel shook his head. I'm just a human. Nothing special. But Liara smiled, a rare and gentle smile. Perhaps. Or perhaps that is what makes you extraordinary. The stars shone brightly outside the window, silent witnesses to a bond that was already reshaping the fate of two worlds. The Resolute drifted through the void, carrying both humans and Filari back to the Empress's homeworld. Commander Daniel Hayes sat in the observation deck, staring at the endless stars. His thoughts were heavy. Every step he had taken since grabbing the Empress's tail had changed his life in ways he could not imagine. What had begun as an accident had grown into something far larger, a bond that now connected him to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And that bond came with responsibilities. Heavy, dangerous, and unpredictable responsibilities. Arrival at the Filari homeworld. The Filari capital was a breathtaking sight. Towers of crystal reached toward the sky, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Gardens floated on platforms high above the ground. Bridges curved elegantly between buildings, and in every corner, the city was alive with movement. Filari of all kinds, going about their lives with grace and energy. But the beauty did not hide the tension. Word of the life bond between the Empress and a human had already spread. Some citizens whispered with curiosity. Others stared in disbelief. And still others, especially the conservative leaders, were openly skeptical, or even angry. Daniel could feel their eyes on him. Everywhere he went, he sensed judgment, suspicion, and the weight of expectations. Liara noticed his unease. Do not fear their eyes, she said softly. her tail brushing lightly against his arm. "They will judge, but they will also learn. You are here not as a stranger, but as one who saved me." Daniel nodded, though the thought of facing alien leaders in their own city made him uneasy. He had dealt with hostile ships and assassins, but this was different. This was politics, tradition, and ceremony, three things humans rarely mastered. The Hall of Trials, the Empress led Daniel to a vast chamber known as the Hall of Trials. Its high ceilings were carved with images of Falari history, showing rulers and heroes, victories and sacrifices. At the center of the hall, a circle of elders awaited, tall, imposing figures in ceremonial robes. Their silver eyes gleamed with authority. "Daniel Hayes," one of them began, their voice carrying through the hall. "You have bonded with the Empress Liara through an act no Falari would take lightly. You are now called to prove your worth. If you succeed, you will honor the bond and earn the respect of our people. If you fail—" Their words trailed off, but the implication was clear. Daniel swallowed hard. "And what are the trials?" The elder's gaze was steady. "3 tests. One of strength, one of intellect, and one of spirit. You must succeed in all. Only then will you be recognized as worthy of the life bond." Liara stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Daniel's shoulder. "I will not interfere, but I will be near. You will not face this alone in spirit." Daniel looked at her, then back at the elders. He felt a nervous laugh rising in his chest. "Strength, intellect, and spirit. Great. This is going to be fun." No one laughed. Trial of strength. The first test was simple to describe but terrifying to attempt. Daniel was brought to an arena, an enormous open space with walls made of shimmering crystal. He faced a series of mechanical constructs, tall, powerful, and relentless. They were designed to test strength, agility, and endurance. As the doors closed behind him, Daniel realized he was alone. Lara observed from a balcony above, silent and watchful. The first construct lunged. Daniel dodged, barely rolling to the side. It struck the ground with a metallic thud, sending sparks flying. He grabbed a fallen metal rod and swung it, hitting the construct squarely on its midsection. Sparks flew, but the machine did not stop. He ran, ducked, jumped, and struck again. Each attack required timing and precision. Daniel was not as strong as a Falari warrior, but he had something else: adaptability. He noticed patterns in the construct's movements, exploiting weaknesses. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The mechanical enemies came faster and stronger, but Daniel moved with growing confidence. Every strike, every dodge, every decision was guided by instinct and observation. Finally, with a swift maneuver, he disabled the last construct. The arena fell silent. The elders nodded, impressed. Daniel was panting, sweat dripping from his forehead, but he had passed the first trial. Liara descended to meet him as he stepped out. "You surprised me," she said softly, her silver eyes glowing. "Not with brute strength, but with courage and skill. You have the heart of a Falari warrior." Daniel blinked. "Heart of a what now?" "I just ran really fast and hit some robots." Liara smiled. "And that is why you succeeded." Trial of intellect. The second trial tested his mind. He was led to a chamber filled with holographic puzzles, mathematical sequences, and alien symbols. The room was silent except for the hum of energy as images floated in the air. An elder spoke. "You must solve these puzzles to show your understanding of strategy, logic, and insight. Fail, and the bond will be questioned." Daniel stared at the first puzzle, a rotating 3-dimensional grid of symbols. He scratched his head. Human logic and Falari logic were different, but patterns were universal. Slowly he traced the paths, connecting symbols that made sense. One by one he solved each puzzle, feeling his confidence grow. The next challenge was a series of scenarios, a simulation of a Falari city under attack. Daniel had to plan defenses using limited resources, anticipating enemy moves and minimizing damage. He hesitated at first, unsure how to interpret alien technology and tactics. Then he remembered the shuttle battle against the assassins. He remembered improvisation, observation, and the way humans could adapt to unexpected problems. Applying the same logic, he redirected energy, positioned defenses cleverly, and predicted enemy movements. When the simulation ended, the elders nodded approvingly. Daniel had not only solved the challenges, but he had done so in a way that no Falari had expected. Liara approached again, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "Your mind is sharp, Commander. Clever, quick, and unafraid of the unknown. This is why humans are remarkable." Daniel gave a small grin. "Finally, something I might actually be good at." Trial of spirit, the third trial, was the hardest. It was not about strength or intellect, but heart, courage, and character. Daniel was led into a dark chamber, empty except for a pool of water at the center. The air shimmered with light and whispers echoed softly around him. An elder spoke. To pass this trial, you must confront your fears. You must face the essence of your spirit. Only then will the bond be complete. Daniel hesitated. What fear? Physical danger he could handle. Logic he had proven. Spirit. What did that even mean? A shadow emerged from the water. At first it looked like nothing. Then slowly it took shape. A version of Daniel himself, but darker, angrier, filled with doubt and fear. The shadow spoke in his own voice. You're a failure. You're not worthy of her trust. You don't belong here. You'll ruin everything. Daniel froze. Every doubt he had ever felt came rushing back. He wanted to run, to hide, to give up. But then Liara's voice echoed softly, not in the chamber, but in his mind. I trust you. You are my protector. You have courage. You have heart. You can do this. He took a deep breath, facing the shadow. I am not perfect, he said, his voice steady. I have doubts, I make mistakes, but I will not fail her. I will not fail anyone who trusts me. I am human, and I have courage enough to do what must be done. The shadow shrieked, but slowly began to fade. The darkness lifted. The whispers vanished. Daniel stood alone in the chamber, but stronger than before. When he exited, the elders' expressions were unreadable for a moment. Then one by one they nodded in approval. You have faced your fears and proven your spirit, one elder said. You are worthy. Liara's silver eyes shone brighter than ever. She stepped forward, taking his hand. You have shown the strength, the mind, and the heart to honor this bond. I am proud of you. Daniel shook his head, laughing softly, exhausted. I can't believe it. I actually did it. 3 trials, I passed, Liara smiled. Not only did you pass, you changed how your people are seen by mine. Today, humans are no longer unknown strangers. They are capable, brave, and honorable. Daniel looked out the window at the Falari capital. I just wanted to survive a mission, he said quietly. Now I feel like I'm part of something bigger. Liara squeezed his hand. You are, Commander. You are part of our history now, and together we will face whatever comes next. The Falari homeworld glowed like a jewel beneath the Resolute. Crystal towers shone in the morning sun, and floating gardens drifted above the bustling cities. For a brief moment, Daniel Hayes allowed himself to feel a spark of hope. After passing the trials, after surviving assassination attempts and fleets of enemies, maybe, just maybe, things could calm down. But he knew better. Somewhere in the shadows, the factions that had tried to kill the Empress were still plotting, and now that humans had proven their value, there were new enemies, bolder, stronger, and more desperate. Liara stood beside him, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. Her tail brushed lightly against his arm, a silent reminder of the bond that had grown between them. Do you feel it, Commander? She asked. Daniel nodded. Something's coming. I can feel it. She didn't need to say more. Both of them knew the danger had not ended. The enemy fleet arrives. The first warning came in the form of a shadow on the sensors. A massive fleet, larger than anything the Falari had expected, moved silently into orbit. Sleek black ships with jagged wings blocked out the light of the sun. Their energy weapons glowed ominously, and their formation suggested years of disciplined tactics. Enemy ships in orbit. The officer on the bridge shouted. Daniel's mind raced. Captain Ortiz, we're outnumbered. But we can't retreat. The city and the Empress will be targeted. Ortiz nodded grimly. We have no choice. All hands to battle stations. Shields up. Weapons ready. Liara stepped forward. Commander, we fight together. You lead. I will follow. Daniel shook his head, but inside he felt a strange surge of confidence. The bond wasn't just about tradition or accident. It had become a source of courage. With her at his side, he felt capable of almost anything. The first strike. The enemy ships opened fire, their energy beams streaking across the sky. Shields on the Resolute shivered under the assault. Smaller human and Falari vessels scrambled into formation, returning fire where they could. Daniel rushed to the tactical console. Target their command ship first. If we take them out, the rest might scatter. Liara moved beside him, her tail flicking as she gave precise commands to Falari ships. The humans and Falari fought together, instinctively following her guidance. Despite the numerical disadvantage, their coordination gave them an edge. Here they come, Daniel shouted as a massive enemy ship veered toward the city. Intercept! A squadron of human fighters raced forward, dodging beams and flares with Falari cruisers covering their flanks. Daniel could barely breathe, but his hands moved with precision, redirecting energy, adjusting shields, and coordinating attacks. Boarding the enemy command ship, even as the battle raged, Daniel knew the only way to truly end the fight was to strike at the heart of the enemy fleet, their command ship. "Liara, we take the shuttle," he said. "We board their command ship and disable it. That should collapse their formation." She nodded. "I go with you. The bond is stronger than fear." The small shuttle weaved through beams of energy, dodging explosions and debris. Daniel's hands were steady, but his heart raced. Liara sat beside him, calm as ever, her presence a silent encouragement. The shuttle slammed into the hull of the enemy command ship. Magnetic clamps held them in place. The doors opened with a hiss. Inside the ship was a maze of metal corridors and blinking lights. Alien soldiers charged at them, but Daniel led the assault with skill and precision. Liara's presence was inspiring. Soldiers and attackers alike faltered under her commanding gaze. The heart of the battle. They reached the control room, where the enemy commander awaited, a tall figure in black armor, their eyes glowing red. "You again," the commander hissed. "You have no right to interfere. Leave now or die." Daniel raised his blaster. "I'm not leaving, not now. Not ever." Liara stepped beside him, her silver tail whipping in determination. "You will not harm this world. Not while I stand with him." The enemy commander lunged. Daniel dodged, rolling across the floor, and fired with careful precision. Liara moved swiftly, blocking attacks and using her agility to push the enemy back. Together, human and Falari acted as one. Daniel's mind raced. He used human ingenuity to override the ship's systems, redirecting power to destabilize the hull. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the ship shuddered violently. Finally, with a precise strike, Daniel hit the control core. Energy surged, then stabilized in a safe mode, neutralizing the enemy fleet's coordination. Without orders, the remaining ships scattered into the void. Silence filled the command room. Daniel and Liara stood together, breathing hard, victorious. The aftermath. The Resolute returned to orbit above the Falari homeworld. Citizens and soldiers cheered as the enemy ships disappeared into the distance. Humans and Falari had fought side by side, proving that unity and courage could overcome even the greatest odds. Liara turned to Daniel, her silver eyes shining. "You have done more than save me. You have saved our people. You have proven that the bond is not weakness but strength." Daniel shook his head, still catching his breath. "I just did what had to be done. I didn't plan to be a hero," Liara smiled. "Heroes are made in the moment they act. You acted, Commander. That makes you extraordinary." For the first time, Daniel felt a sense of pride, not in himself alone, but in what humans could do. Against overwhelming odds, ingenuity, courage, and determination had carried the day. The Declaration. A few days later, a grand ceremony was held in the capital. Falari leaders, dignitaries from neighboring systems, and human diplomats gathered in the Great Hall. Liara stood before the crowd, Daniel by her side. "The galaxy has seen humans as strangers. Travelers or merchants," Liara declared. "Today, one human has proven courage, loyalty, and wisdom beyond expectation. Commander Daniel Hayes is my protector, and through him humanity earns honor among the stars." Cheers erupted. Daniel blinked, stunned. The same humans who had teased him about the bond now cheered louder than anyone else. Falari citizens bowed, some in respect, some in awe. Even the conservative elders nodded in approval, acknowledging the humans' bravery. Liara stepped closer to Daniel. "You have changed the course of history, Commander. You have shown that a human can stand as an equal, that courage is universal. Together, we have proven the power of unity." Daniel swallowed hard. I never expected any of this. I just wanted to survive the day." She smiled, a rare and gentle expression. "And now you have saved more than one life. You have saved 2 worlds. That is no small thing." The bond solidified. That evening, Daniel and Liara walked along a balcony overlooking the city. The crystal towers reflected the setting sun, casting a golden glow over the streets below. "You know," Daniel said quietly, "when I grabbed your tail, I thought it was just a lucky accident. I never imagined." This, Liara's silver eyes met his. "Accidents can become destiny. Bonds can form in moments we do not understand. But what matters is what we do after." Daniel laughed softly. "I guess I'll have to get used to this. Being part of alien history thing." "You are already part of it," she said. "And not just part. You have changed it." He shook his head, smiling. I still can't believe it. From almost falling to almost dying to this. Somehow I ended up in the right place at the right time. Liara extended her hand. And you will continue to stand at my side, Commander. Not because you are bound by tradition, but because you choose to act with courage and heart. Daniel took her hand, feeling the weight of the bond. Not as a burden, but as a promise. Together they had faced death, enemies, and uncertainty. Together they had proven that humans could be more than strangers in the galaxy. They could be heroes, a new beginning. The stars outside shimmered with possibility. The galaxy had witnessed the courage of one human and the wisdom of an Empress. Humanity had earned respect not by force but by ingenuity, loyalty, and unyielding determination. Daniel looked out at the endless sky.
So, what now?
He asked. Liara's silver eyes gleamed. Now we continue. We explore, we protect, and we build a future together. For our people. For the galaxy. For the bond we share, Daniel nodded. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead. But he did know this. No matter what came, he would face it with courage, wit, and heart. And he would not be alone. The bond had begun as an accident, but it had grown into something stronger than either of them could have imagined. And in that bond, two worlds found hope, unity, and the promise of a brighter future.